You will see on the screen that this is called predicting your future. Because the truth is, you want to know your future, don't you? You know, with everything that's going on in the world, we would like to know what is going to happen in the future. And people go to all kinds of really weird, extraordinary lengths to try and predict their future. And there is a thriving industry of astrologers and horoscopes and fortune tellers and tarot card readers and all this kind of thing, which is going on in the world because people want to know the future. And some people seeing this will be thinking, I'm not certain I like where this is going, because the Bible expressly forbids trying to predict the future through these means. And it does so in Deuteronomy 18, verses 10 onwards. So some people will be a bit worried that where I'm going with this. And some others of you will think, no, I trust Ian. So although I don't know where he's going with this, I'm sure it's going to be all right. Don't worry, it will be. All scriptural stuff that I'm doing today. The other thing I want to say as I begin is I get research from lots and lots of places. I look into things when I'm doing a topic. But this series is based very much on some stuff by a guy called Andy Stanley. So because a lot of the material is from him, I'll give him the shout out straight away. Thank you to Andy Stanley for providing a lot of this material. So, we've said we all want to know what's going to happen. And the first thing I want you to understand is this. You already know that you can predict the future. You might be thinking to yourself, do I? Do I know I can predict the future? Yes. I can prove to you that you know that you can predict the future. Because haven't you said, I should have seen that coming? Has something ever happened to you and you've said, oh yeah, I should have seen that coming. I could have seen that. If I'd thought about it, I would have known that that was going to happen. All right, maybe some of you have never said that. Okay. Well, for those of you who have never said that, this is what you have said. I knew that was going to happen to them. If you've never said it about yourself, you've said it about somebody else. You've seen the way they've behaved. You've seen the kind of things that they were doing. You've seen the way their life was going. And when it's all come to that crashing problem or that difficulty, you've looked and you've said, it was obvious. I knew that was going to happen. You successfully predicted the future. Now, I'm going to talk about a principle for a while. And basically, this is how you can predict the future. The place that you end up is largely determined by the way that you are going. You know, on a very simple level, if I go north on the M6, which part of the country am I going to end up in? The north. If I go south on the M6, which part of the country am I going to end up in? The south. Because the place that I end up is largely determined by the direction that I am going. And the title for this part one of Predicting Your Future is Direction Determines Destination. And if we were allowed to say it out loud, I'd get you all to shout it, but we're not. But if you're at home watching this next week, then you can say, direction determines destination. That's what I want you to remember today. Direction determines destination. I'm going to come back to some more detail on that, but when you think about it, you already know this. Now, this is a principle. So let me talk for a couple of minutes about principles. What do we mean by the fact that this is a principle? Firstly, principles are not rules that you decide to follow or you decide not to follow. It's not like somebody gives you some rules and you say, I can choose to follow that rule or I can choose not to follow that rule. It doesn't work that way. You can't make a choice about that. You don't choose to apply them. Principles automatically apply themselves to you. You might not want them to apply to you, but they do apply to you. And they have the habit of coming and applying themselves to you when you don't want them to. Principles are not laws that you can break. It is not like the list of the laws in the Old Testament. And you say, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I may follow the law or I may break the law. It does not work that way with principles. They're not laws that you can break, but they have been known to break people. The principle can break you if you do not pay attention to it, which I sum up in the phrase, you can use them for your benefit, or you can ignore them to your cost. A principle can be used for your benefit, or if you ignore the principle, it's going to cost you. Let me give you an example. Exercise affects your health. You know that. That is a principle. There are times I wish this was not a principle. There are times I wish I could be a healthy person and ignore exercise. But I know that that is not the way the principle works. This is not a rule that I can decide to follow. It's not, I decide to follow the rule that exercise affects my health, so when I exercise, my health is affected because I'm following the rule. I've got no choice about that. It says you don't choose to apply them. They apply themselves to you. You see, I would say, okay, I want to live a life where exercise doesn't affect my health. But I don't choose whether it applies to me or not. It does. It's a principle. It automatically applies. It's not a law that I can break. But if I ignore the fact that exercise affects my health, I can end up in a very unhealthy state if I do no exercise. And I can use this principle for my benefit, or I can ignore it to my cost. I can recognize that exercising is going to help me and do it, and I will have improved health, or I can ignore this fact, this principle, and it will cost me. Now, we know this is an important principle because in COVID, as we are in a situation where, there's all kinds of things we can't do in church, there's all kinds of places we can't go, there's all kinds of places closed down, what's the one thing that the government will let us do? Go out for a walk. They recognize that exercise is so important, that exercise affects our health, and they recognize that it would be worse for this country, health-wise, if we did no exercise than if we catch COVID. Because as a health thing, this is more important than COVID. It's a principle, and it applies to us whether we like it or not. So I say again, direction determines destination. That is the way it works. The way that you are going is the best predictor of where you will end up. If you look at the direction you're traveling, that is going to give you a very good idea of where you will end up. It is a principle. Now, what you do with that principle is up to you. You can ignore that principle, and you can go in a bad direction, and you can end up in a place that you did not want to be, and it can be predicted. You can predict your future, because if you're going in a direction and you don't like the way that it's going, well then you need to change that direction, because it is the direction that determines your destination. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is this. I am not giving you a fix. This principle about direction determines destination is not a fix. I wish it was a fix, but it's not. What do I mean? Well, let's take an example of a car. Okay, we want a fix. If my car won't start, then I get it taken to the garage, or I get somebody comes out and they fix my car. My car does not work, someone does something to it, and then it does work. That is a fix. If they say it's impossible to fix, or it's too expensive to fix, then we write off that car and we get another car. And the problem is fixed. And that's what we want to happen with our life. If I find myself in a difficult situation, I want a fix. You want a fix. If something's gone wrong, you want a fix. You want everything to be changed. So instead of being wrong, all of a sudden it's right. Instead of being a problem, and suddenly there is no problem. And we want there to be everything from the past disappeared and everything going forward completely fine because the problem has been fixed. That's what we want. Problem is, most personal problems cannot be fixed. in that sense. You can't go to a counselor or a doctor or a psychologist and say, this is my problem, and they say, okay, give me 300 quid and I will fix your problem. And when you go out of here, you will be fixed. Your problem will be solved. It does not work that way with our personal situations. The truth is, our personal problems can often occur because of a whole string of circumstances, sometimes, very often, the direction that we have been going, the things that we have done, and as a result of that, we find ourselves in a problem. And there is no quick fix. There is no instant fix. What there is a change of direction. If you've got a problem in life because we've been going one way, then to solve the problem will require us to change direction and go on a different path. And then, over time, the problems will be overcome. I would love it if we could just pray and instantly all of our problems would disappear. And you know what? God in his incredible mercy sometimes does that for the odd problem, but not very many. What we generally need is a change of direction. Consider this. If you're lost, why are you lost? Have you ever got lost? Have you ever been, walking or driving and you get lost? The truth is, if you get lost, there's a reason. It's because you've gone the wrong way. You've been going in the wrong direction. The funny thing about being lost is you often don't notice it at the start. You're going the wrong way and you don't even realize it. You think everything's okay. But at some point you realize, I took a wrong turn somewhere and now I'm in the wrong place. And you cannot have someone fix the problem by disappearing you from one point and teleporting you and you appear somewhere else. This is what you have to do if you're lost. You have to find the right way and you change direction. And then you go the right way. That's what happens when you're lost. There is no fix other than a change of direction. Because direction determines your destination. Where are you going in these areas of life? Do you like where you're going in these areas of life that I'm about to mention? And if you don't like where you're going in these areas of life, consider if you need a change of direction. Financially, are your finances going in the right direction or the wrong direction? There's no promise in God that we will be rich, but there is a promise that we will have our needs met and that we will prosper if we go in the right direction. If you're spending more than your income, your finances are going in the wrong direction. That's not sustainable for a long time. Where are you going financially? Where are you going professionally in terms of your job, in terms of work? Which direction is that going? Do you want a better job? Do you want a job with prospects? Do you want to improve in the job that you've got? Now, that doesn't mean everybody has to have a job. It doesn't mean the jobs have to be paid. Volunteer work is a phenomenal thing. We've taken a decision as a family. Hillary works as a volunteer for the church. And we're very happy with that professional decision. That doesn't mean that she's going in the wrong direction because she doesn't get paid for all the work she does. It's a choice that we've made. But that we're very happy with the direction. Professionally, are you happy with your direction? Academically, are you happy with your direction? Relationally, in the relationships that you are in, within your family, within your wider family, your extended family, are you happy that things are going in the right direction? Because I'll be straight with you, if they're going the wrong direction, you will end up somewhere you don't want to be. Relationships do not go wrong in an instant. They go wrong because they go in the wrong direction for a period of time. And if it's going the wrong way, you need a change of direction. Otherwise, your relationship will end up in a place you don't want it to end up. Morally, what are you doing in the direction? Are you being tempted to do things that you know you should not be doing? whether they're legal or illegal, whether it's a moral issue or not. Which direction are you going morally? Spiritually. Spiritually to me is a big one, because spiritually impacts the others in such a huge way. Spiritually, in terms of your closeness to God, what direction are you going in? So you see, all these areas of life, if you look at that and you think, I am not happy with the future I'm predicting. This is a talk about predicting the future. You can see what direction you're going in some of those areas, and you can see you're going to end up somewhere that you don't want to end up. Well, then wake up and change direction. It's a 3-part series, and to be honest, the next series is going to continue to look at some of these issues. So I'm not offering you a fix today, but I am offering you a change of direction. Last way that I want to talk about this topic is from the parable that Jesus tells in Matthew 7, verses 24 to 27. And he talks about 2 builders. And probably you know the story already. There is a wise man who builds his house upon the rock. There's a foolish man who builds his house upon the sand. And when the storm comes and the rain batters down, then the house built on the rock stands firm, and the house that is built upon the sand collapses. Let's look at that in terms of the context of your direction determines your destination. Building on the rock is the wise thing to do. That is considered wise. What are we meaning by the wise? Why is this the wise man? Why is this wise? Firstly, because he understands that today affects tomorrow. A wise person understands that the different areas of your life are connected. A wise man recognizes that if I do something today, there will be consequences tomorrow. They may be positive consequences if I do the right thing. They may be negative consequences if I do the wrong thing, because my direction determines my destination. So a wise man goes through life thinking about what are the consequences for what I am doing. Because that is a wise thing to do. Now, it is hard to build on the rock. If you've got rock and you want to build a level house, it's hard to dig out foundations. It's hard to level off ground, but it is strong. The wise person recognizes that they're not looking for the easy path. They are looking for the path that gets them to the destination that they want. And if a person wants a safe house, they want to build a house with strong foundations. So the wise thing to do is, if it's necessary to put effort in to reach the destination, well, then do it, because that's wise. And what we sometimes do when we see a wise person is we think, oh, aren't they lucky? We see the position they're in. We see that when the difficulty comes, then they are able to cope with it. We see that they get by. And we look at how they manage in the difficult problem. And we say, aren't they lucky? God really loves them. Look how God's blessed them. I wish he'd blessed me like that. I wish I was as lucky as that. And the truth is, it's not luck. Very often the reason, and in this parable, the reason the house stands, there's no luck in it, there's nothing about whether God loves you or not in it. It is because the person went in the right direction, in a sustained way, in a consistent way, and they reached the place they wanted to be, so that when the storm comes, their house does not fall. What about the person who builds their house upon the sand? Now, they are the foolish one. And the foolish guy builds his house on the sand, and the first thing I want you to spot is he wants what the wise man wants. You see, whether you're wise or foolish is not necessarily about what you want. They both wanted the same thing. They both wanted a place to live. So he wants what the wise man's got. But the difference is he forgets that today affects tomorrow. He thinks, as long as I get through today, I'll deal with the consequences, whatever they may be. And if it all goes wrong, I'll just start again, forgetting that you carry baggage with you from difficulties and failures. Now, I know that in God we can be forgiven. I know that in God we get a fresh start. I know that we're a new creation, but we still live with the consequences of our past. We are not a prisoner of our past as a Christian, but we are still a product of our past as a Christian. So, you can't just do whatever you like and go in the wrong direction and just say, it's okay, God will forgive me. I will have no consequences. Sure, God will forgive you. And he will help you clean up your mess. And you know how he'll do that? By helping you change direction. So, the foolish man forgets that today affects tomorrow. The foolish man recognizes that it's easy to build on the sand, that you can dig out the foundations in a few minutes, that he can get his house really, really quick. But he forgets that it's weak. He hasn't got what he wants. He's got the appearance of what he wants, a house, but he hasn't got what he wants, a strong, secure house. You see, the foolish man assumes that tomorrow's weather is the same as today's weather. A foolish man thinks the situation I'm in now is the same as it's always going to be. So as long as I can get by today, then I will get by every day, because every day is the same. That's foolish, because we all know that storms come, that difficulties come, and therefore we need to be aware that we're not just building enough to get through one day, but we are building by going the right direction for our futures. And when the house collapses, there is no quick fix. When the house collapses and the man says, "Oh, will someone fix this for me?" there is no quick fix. What that person has to do is they have to go and find the rock, and they have to build a house on the rock like they should have done in the first place. They need a change of direction. So we see these two kinds of builders, and what I have said so far, to be honest, that applies to you whether you're a Christian or not. That's just good advice, that's just good common sense. But here is the key to this parable. It's how it begins. Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice, in other words, who does them, is like a wise man. Everyone who hears these words of mine, Jesus says, and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man. You see, the point about being wise or foolish is not just about the direction, it's understanding which is the right direction. And Jesus says these words after the Sermon on the Mount, and he gives loads of helpful information about living life and connecting with God and everlasting life. And after he said them, he goes, "You hear all this stuff I've said? The wise person will do this." Now, I want you to see in these two phrases, who hears the words? The wise and the foolish both hear the words. And what God is asking you to do is not to hear the words, it is to put them into practice. It is not enough just to hear this principle. It's not enough to go, "Oh, that is so true. That is really right. That stuff Ian's been talking about that I'm hearing, he is so right about this. That's really profound." It doesn't do you any good if you feel that. If you feel a conviction from God that you ought to change, does that change anything? No. The conviction doesn't change it. What happens is when you change direction, when you start putting the words of Jesus into practice, that's when the change comes. I was talking last week about the process of transformation, about journey. That's what God is asking of you, to go on this journey, a change of direction. you need to be honest. If you've got a problem, if you've got a difficulty, that there is not likely to be a quick fix. Oh, I nearly said something now. I'm going to save it for another week. Save it for another week. There is not likely to be a quick fix. Yes, do pray about it. Yes, do get help with it. But recognize that in the long run, what you need is a change of direction. And God's call, we've been talking about calling for the last 3 weeks. God's call is an invitation to change direction. And I put that list up again: financially, professionally, academically, relationally, morally, spiritually. You are invited to consider which direction you are going in all of those spheres of life, and to say, am I happy with the way I'm going? Am I happy with where this is going to end up? And if the answer is you are happy, fantastic. That's brilliant. Well done. But if the answer is, actually, it's going to end up somewhere you don't want to be, then maybe you need to change direction on one or more of those areas. And I'm not going to tell you how to do that now, or which direction to go, or all that sort of thing, other than the change of direction. It's what God calls us. Fundamentally, that is the call on a Christian's life. To follow Jesus. To change direction and follow God. Let's pray.